You read that title correctly. The Miami Dolphins need to address the tight ends and the third wide receiver spot. We're going to get into that, and I got a little clip here from Greg Olsen that kind of solidifies the Miami Dolphins and their tight end position. What is up, Fin fans? Hope you guys are having a absolute fantastic Tuesday. There is a winter storm hitting me here in Jersey. So while you're watching this, I might be outside shoveling. But it varies. For all you guys who live up in the Northeast, it varies. At 1 minute, they could be like, oh, you're just getting rain. And the next minute, they're like, oh, you're getting 2 feet of snow. And then the next minute, they're like, psych, you're getting rain again. So I'm either shoveling or I'm not shoveling. But yeah. So I thought, let's get into kind of talking more. I did a team needs already. If you remember, I talked about tight ends. And if you remember, I talked about a third wide receiver. Barry Jackson kind of talks about that plus more. So we're going to go into that. But I also do have a clip here, thanks to Reason from Finside the NFL. Go check out his channel. He also played this clip on his channel. And I thought it was super interesting that I kind of wanted to talk about it. Before we jump into that, though, real quick, I got to shout out today's sponsor, and that is BetUS. I've been working with BetUS throughout the whole football season, and they have stuff that's not just about football. So if you're a baseball fan, if you're a hockey fan, if you're a basketball fan, if you're a golf fan, if you're any type of fan, they got it all over there for you. Click the link in the description. You get 125% on your first deposit. Hold on, wait a second. If you use the promo code, also after clicking the link in the description, join 125, you get 125% on your first 3 deposits over $100. Also, you get a 10% gambler's insurance for your net losses if you're active for every 6 months. 24/7 customer service, 24-hour quick payouts. Go check them out. Click the links in the description. And like I said, use the promo code JOIN125. 3 deposits, 125%. So BetUS, thank you so much for sponsoring this video and all of my videos throughout the season. You are a big help to the channel. You're a big help to us growing. And I say us because you guys are a part of this DDW community. So let's jump into this. First, I want you to hear, we're going to talk tight ends. First, I want you to hear what Greg Olsen had to say when it came to, now this was I think the Monday night game against the Tennessee Titans. Greg Olsen, either that or Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, my apologies. It's Christmas Eve game against the Cowboys. Listen to what he says here.
I'm a big Mike McDaniel fan. I love his scheme. I told him when we saw him the other day, I said, listen, I love everything about what you do, your vibe, your whole, we got to get the tight ends going. And he said, well, that's the next step of the progression, right? Maybe that's year 3, but.
So Greg Olsen talks to Mike McDaniel, and Mike McDaniel, you know, Greg Olsen, obviously tight end for the Panthers forever. I don't remember what team he went to after the Panthers, but he's a tight end. And he's saying, oh man, you're doing some great things, which the Dolphins were. Obviously, at one point we were calling it the greatest show on surf. But they were missing certain pieces, right? A lot of it was focused on Waddle. A lot of it was, no, I'm not even going to say a lot of it. I would say 95% of it was focused on Tyreek Hill. The tight ends, right? Tight ends could be a huge threat, especially up the seam, short distance downs, out routes, crossing routes. Use those big body tight ends. Greg Olsen talks to Mike McDaniel, and Mike McDaniel tells Greg Olsen, it's year 3, man. This is when we concentrate on the tight ends. This is where we start to bring in those types of tight ends. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 2024 is year 3 of Mike McDaniel's tenure with the Miami Dolphins, which means this is the year of the tight end. This is the year that they hopefully bring in a tight end. If somehow Bowers starts to fall in this draft and they somehow pull it out where they move up and get him, would love it. If they could somehow, I don't think they will. Dream scenario. I might do, I have a video plan for worst case scenarios coming this off season. That might come out tomorrow. I'm going to do a video talking about best case scenarios coming this offseason. And that might be one of them. So tight ends might be the thing. And I'm talking about that because Barry Jackson came out with this article, said on the Dolphins' needs for a stretch tight end or a better number 3 and more. So he says, more Dolphins chatter in our 6-part facts/conclusion series on Dolphins personnel. I'm telling you, Barry Jackson does some really great things. He says, facts. The Dolphins were the only team in the AFC without a touchdown caught by a tight end last season. Also, only 3 receptions by tight ends went over 20 yards or more, all to Durham Smythe. As perspective, 32 tight ends exceeded 3 20-plus yard receptions on their own last season, led by Greg Kittle's 18. Dalton Schultz, who once signed a 1-year, $6.5 million dollar deal with Houston last March, has 7 such catches, but Miami might want to spend that much. Miami didn't want to spend that much, money on a tight end. While Gesicki returning in 2023 was never realistic, keep in mind that Gesicki caught touchdown passes against good teams. 1 against Baltimore in 2020 and 2 against Minnesota. The Dolphins never found a player who had the red zone skills of Gesicki. They need one. That's not a knock on Durham Smythe, who has a career high in receptions 35 and yards 366. Smythe and rookie Julian Hill are tough, physical, team-first players who had some very good moments as blockers, but the Dolphins need another element in the room to supplement that. He says the conclusion, the Dolphins need either a dynamic third receiver or a tight end who can be a seam threat. It doesn't matter which it is, but there needs to be another player acquired who must be accounted for, a player who can be a safety valve if Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are blanketed. For what they are asked to do, Smythe and Hill are certainly competent. PFF seems to undervalue Smythe, who's rated 54th, and Julian Hill, who's rated 73, and least among tight ends. 100%, right? I like Durham Smythe. Julian Hill is up and coming. He did make some mistakes in some critical positions last year. We'd have a big run. He'd have a holding call. It'd put us down in long distances. Then all of a sudden the drive kind of ends. So versus getting the first down on a nice run, I think it's like a 15-yard run. It backs us up, and then all of a sudden the drive ends because of the penalty. We can't make up for the down distance. But he has promise, and Durham Smythe is a very good, like Barry Jackson said, a very good, reliable tight end. You saw us hitting him in the seams. You saw, if it was like 3rd and 4, we'd hit him on a 2-yard out route. He would use his big physical body to run through the defenders, get the first downs that we need. And both guys are good run blockers. So if we do have a big wing formation and, a single back formation, it doesn't give away if it's a run or a pass. That is the only knock that we had on Gesicki. Gesicki was great. And it wasn't about not having a relationship with Tua, because Tua threw to him a lot before Tyreek Hill got there. Tua would lean on Gesicki. It kind of was more Brian Flores, because if you remember the last year Flores were there, when Gesicki caught the touchdown, he kind of put it in his stomach and said, this is what happens. I think he was mic'd up. He said, this is what happens when you keep me on the field or something like that. I don't remember. There was some type of animosity between the two. But when Gesicki was out there, so again, single back formation, big wing set. And what a big wing set is, you have 2 tight ends on whatever side the Dolphins decide they want to run a formation. So it's a single back formation, 1 running back in the backfield, big wing. You got 2 tight ends either on the left or the right, whatever they want to do. In a situation where you have Durham Smythe and Julian Hill in that big wing formation, you don't know if they're going to run or pass it, because both these guys are very good at blocking. But go back a year ago, you got that big wing formation. Mike Gesicki's out there. They're throwing the ball because they're not going to entrust Mike Gesicki to block on these downs. So that's a lot of the reason why Gesicki kind of didn't stick with the type of offense we're running, because you need to be able to block, and you need to be able not to give away the play that is about to be called. So that's that. So we kind of need, and like Barry Jackson kind of alluded to, we kind of need to say we kind of need a Travis Kelce is a dumb moment, but to find a Travis Kelce is kind of like trying to say we need to find a Tom Brady, or we need to find a Randy Moss, or we need to find a Patrick Mahomes. They're not easy to find. Now, we need to find a tight end who fits the roles, because Mike Gesicki wasn't a tight end. To me, a tight end is a good blocker, but also a threat in that position. Gesicki was a threat in that position. He wasn't a good blocker. So he was more like a big-bodied slot receiver than he was a tight end. Dolphins need a tight end. They needed a Kincaid, which I wanted. I wanted him so bad. If the Dolphins didn't lose their first-round pick to tampering, I bet my bottom dollar they would have drafted Kincaid, and I would have done a backflip because he was right there if they would have took him. But that's what they need. Now, are they going to go out and get one in free agency? Probably not, because Barry Jackson already talked about Dalton Schultz, and supposedly there's already talks that him and the Texans want to get a deal done where they stay together. I'm going to make a video talking about free agent targets we're going to go after, but they have to, like Greg Olsen said, he talked to Mike McDaniel. This is the time that they need to add that threat. And then Barry Jackson goes on more, and that's why I talk about, Miami Dolphins need to address tight end and slot receiver. Fact, the production of the 3rd through 6th receivers was uneven, partially a byproduct of lack of opportunities, but sometimes a result of not getting open. Braxton Berrios, who caught 27 of 33 targets for 238 yards, had 16 targets in the first 4 weeks, but just 17 to the remainder of the season. His disappearance from the offense was puzzling. Cedric Wilson Jr. had 22 receptions for 296 yards, but on 38 targets. That's not a good enough connection rate, especially for a quarterback as accurate as Tua Tagovailoa. Their miscommunication cost them a potential game-tying touchdown against Kansas City. Chase Claypool, 4 receptions and 7 targets for 26 yards, didn't have nearly the impact after his October acquisition from Chicago. I remember when we traded for Chase Claypool, I was like, all right, I like what they're doing. Getting that big body on there, kind of try to move him to tight end, blah, blah, blah. Didn't happen. Aside from the 68-yard touchdown from Mike White and the demolition of Denver, Robbie, I love that. That's a good name for that game, Barry. If you watch this, Barry Jackson, first off, love your stuff. But that 70-20 win should be called the demolition of Denver. That's really cool. Robbie Chosen has just 3 receptions for 58 yards. River Craycraft has 8 targets in the first 3 games, but just 4 targets in the next 7 that he played, with an injury in between. It's notable that 8 of his 9 receptions, each of the past 2, have gone for first down, so he's reliable when he gets the chance. Conclusion, he says, all 5 of the 3rd through 7 receivers will be free agents, and Miami probably needs to reshape the room. Here's the thing. Oh, there's more. It's unclear what the Dolphins have in Eric Uzukama, who missed the final 3 months with a neck injury and remains under contract for the next 2 years. He's now healthy and deserves a long look. It could be justified to bring back Berrios. Say that 10 times fast. Bring back Berrios. BBB, who's capable returner, and there's no harm in bringing back Craycraft at a minimum, but Miami needs to find solid value veteran to fill out the room, and I agree 1,000,000%. Now, was it a byproduct, like Barry said, of kind of just forcing the ball to Tyreek at times? Because there was a lot of times and a lot of games that Jalen Waddle wasn't out there. Was it a lot of just forcing it to Tyreek? Was it a lot of Tua, staring down his main guy and trying to force it to him versus the offensive line not giving him time, or Tua just getting the hiccups? Could be a plethora of things. It also could be that these receivers weren't getting open as much as Tyreek and Jalen were. Because you got to realize something as a quarterback, if you're getting open and you're taking advantage of these corners and you're being a torment to that secondary, I'm going to keep hitting you. If every time I drop back and I look your way and you are open, every time I need you to be, I'm going to hit you. Versus if I drop back, okay, your first read on this one is Berrios on an in route, then it's Jalen Waddle on a post, then it's Tyreek Hill on a go, and I drop back and I look over at Berrios on an in route and he's just blanketed the entire time, then I have to get to my next read and all of a sudden it's collapsing. I mean, not saying that was the reason to the people who don't like to and are ready to jump down my throat. Just, it's an example. You stop looking that player's way. You know what I'm saying? If you're constantly blanketed and you're constantly having a hard time, breaking your coverage, and for a fact you only have a certain amount of time in that pocket, you stop looking that way. Not saying that's the case, but as me, that's probably something I would do. All right, well, I can rely on Waddle getting open. I can rely on Tyreek getting open. I can't rely on these guys getting open. So I'm not going to look their way as my first read, mostly because they're not the first read, but I can't waste the down. I need the guys to be open. So that could be a possibility. But to me, the Dolphins definitely need that threat. And I have a few names that I'd be interested in free agency that might not cost you a lot of money. That would be really good slots. Now, I wouldn't be against keeping Cedric Wilson Jr. I like the way he started to play going down the stretch. I love the touchdown catch he had against the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the way he was playing with the sideline catches and stuff. So I wouldn't be against keeping him in the fold. But like Barry said, you need to add a few more pieces into that wide receiver room because Chase Claypool ain't it. Robbie Chosen ain't it. River Craycraft is reliable on certain downs, but he's not going to scare the opposing defense. Same thing with Braxton. And we need a kick returner. No offense to Braxton, but he doesn't have that speed and that elusiveness to take something to the house like we've had done to us a few times. So Barry Jackson keeps going here, and I kind of want to talk about what he keeps going. He says, fact, Waddle within 2 years is going to be positioned to become a very expensive number 2 receiver, perhaps the most expensive number 2 receiver in football. The Dolphins may have until May 2nd to pick up his $15 million option for 2025, which is a certainty. Despite missing 3 games due to injury and often deferring to Hill, Waddle caught 73 passes, tied for 36 in the NFL for 1,014 yards, tied for 27th. Hill's yards per reception dropped from a league high 18.1 to 14.1 last year. So again, I don't know if it was because Tyreek was talking about breaking 2K, but in 2022, 18.1 to 2023, 14.1. Both years Tyreek was on the team. Yeah. I'm like, was Tyreek on the team? Yeah. Miami scored 7. Yeah, I'm like, was he on the team? Miami scored 70 points without him against Denver, but the Dolphins badly missed him in the Buffalo finale and to an extent against Baltimore. Conclusion, though a pricey extension for Waddle will put the Dolphins in even greater cap hell, trading him would probably be a mistake, 100%. Because Tua lacks most escapability. Surprised I got that out. He needs elite receivers to make his offense work, and losing Waddle would allow defenses to focus more on stopping Hill. The only reasons to ever consider trading Waddle, if you're far apart on extension talks next year, that Miami feels that it has no other choice, or if a team makes an offer too good to refuse, any such offer likely would need to include a first-round pick. Yeah, like pretty much Laramie Tunsil. A lot of people didn't want to trade Laramie Tunsil, and when Laramie Tunsil trade happened, a lot of people got upset. But you get a phone call, and you're offered that many first-round picks. Laramie Tunsil said himself, I would have traded myself with the amount of picks that the Dolphins got. Did they use them properly? Not necessarily all of them, but still, you're going to use that. Here's my thing, right? Jalen Waddle's contract is done at the end of this year. He does not have a contract in 2025 because he was drafted in 2021. The Dolphins need to decide by May 2nd if they're going to pick up his 5th-year option. They're going to pick up his 5th-year option. So now's the time you want to re-sign him. I wouldn't be against it because Waddle's going to be here when Tyreek isn't. Waddle's not going to be the number 2 forever because Tyreek isn't going to be here forever. Tyreek Hill might be here for like another 2 years. And then he might retire or they might go in a different direction. And Jalen Waddle, Jalen Phillips, and Javon Holland and even I would throw in Christian Wilkins, but I don't know about that, or what you want to build this team around because that is, and Devon Achane, those are your young core guys that are really good. So yeah, I'm giving Jalen Waddle a contract, and I'm giving him a contract where the cap hit isn't bad, and the back end is where he gets his money because Tyreek Hill won't be here, and then he'll be paid like a number 1 receiver, which he will be for the Miami Dolphins. So that's a no biggie on my head. Then Barry talks about Nick Needham. He says Nick Needham never got a chance to regain his old nickel corner spot. When Needham returned in October, 54 weeks after tearing his Achilles, he was in a dime safety role, playing modest snaps. He allowed 6 of 8 targets to be caught for 44 yards, an 87.5 passer rating against. Elijah Campbell, the other safety, was a help on special teams and permitted 6 of 9 catches. Needham and Campbell are both unrestricted free agents. Campbell could return on a low deal with Needham. The question is whether the front office believes he can return to be an effective nickel corner like he was before he got injured. It's if it's a low money deal, there's no harm in bringing back Needham and seeing if he can recapture that early career magic. I agree. If you could bring him back for cheap, then do it. He was good before the Achilles injury. We'll see if he can get back there. And then the last one he talks about, he says, unlike predecessor Josh Boyer, Vic Fangio didn't blitz his defensive backs very much. In 2022, under Boyer, Javon Holland blitzed 37 times, 10th among safeties, and had 9 pressures, 2 sacks. In 2023, under Fangio, Holland blitzed only 6 times and had 1 pressure. In 2021, Jones blitzed 93 times, and had 7 pressures and 5 sacks. It's Brandon Jones. But in 2023, Fangio, Jones blitzed only 3 times and had 2 hurries. Safety, Deshaun Elliott rushed the quarterback only once in 528 passing plays and had a pressure on that play. Like Jones, Elliott is set to become an unrestricted free agent. Fangio's, and this is the conclusion, Fangio's unwillingness to blitz Jones more often was one of the greatest disappointments of the season, in my view, because he failed to capitalize on a unique skill. Brandon Jones is really good getting after the quarterback. He's not that great in a coverage spot as a safety, but he's good at run stopping and good at getting after the quarterback. If the Dolphins retain Jones, new coordinator Anthony Weaver needs to seize on that skill more than 3 times in a season. Same with Holland, even though he has great value in coverage too. Safety blitzes could have disrupted Tennessee's rookie quarterback Will Levis during his 2 late game winning drives against the Dolphins that Fangio never tried, remaining one of the gnawing regrets of last season. Yeah, obviously that Tennessee game, a lot of it could be on the defense. You gave up 2 touchdowns in 3 minutes, but also the offense. You got to get a first down. You get a first down, you run that clock out, they ain't winning that game. But we played too safe in that last game. But overall, I like Barry's article. It kind of talks about the tight ends and how that needs to be addressed, and that's why I played the clip of Greg Olsen kind of hopefully reassuring that that's going to happen. Jalen Waddle, he's going to get a contract extension. That's the next guy who's going to get paid. And again, you backload the contract when we don't have Tyreek and he starts getting paid like a number 1 wide receiver. Got to get that 3rd wide receiver threat. Nick Needham, all that stuff. Comment below, let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I have a video coming out where I talk about worst case scenarios coming to the offseason when it comes to like free agency and stuff like that. And I'm going to do one with best case scenarios. So it'll be fun. And I have a video specifically on Tua, breaking down his season, the goods and the bads. I have a video looking at the defense because it's starting to kind of come together. Got a lot of stuff ready for you guys. There is no off season for DDW. So see you guys in the next one. But like usual, stay classy. Fins up.